I'm starting right off the bat because first of all, I love these actors on actors.
Me too.
I watch all of them.
Yes.
So the fact that I get to be here with you is such a treat for me.
Likewise,
So,
sir. I'm very excited.
I am very excited as well. And
I just finished your show, so I have lots of questions for
As
you.
do I.
Okay.
I've been living in This Is Us land for a while and living with your beautiful television family.
Aw, thanks.
I feel like I'm out of emotions because I watched maybe 3 or 4 episodes this morning. Whoa. So I'm just crawling out of that emotional hole.
Yeah,
But it's a great one. I feel it's like so.
Thanks.
It's not like somebody dies and that's it. It's like, oh no, we can see everything else and see the breadth of life and how many wonderful things can happen.
Yeah, and you don't ever really die on our show anyway.
That's what I'm sort of getting.
Yeah.
So it's nice. It's a nice relief.
Yes.
So I will start by saying, before we get into our sort of more recent ventures, that my favorite Mandy Moore track
Oh no!
is off 1999's seminal So Real album, Mandy Moore's debut album. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
I would love to give everyone their money back that bought this record, so I'm really curious to hear what you're going to say about this.
I would like to be the first to try and articulate this to you on the Actors on Actors Variety Studio. I'm sure there's a lot of embarrassing things there where you roll your eyes, but those songs gave people like me so much joy.
Really?
That you shouldn't shy away from that. And also, we're lucky to be in a culture where nostalgia is really celebrated now.
That's true.
And you're also crushing it. So it's not like you're living in a hole somewhere and this is like sad. It's like you've done great.
I've come beyond.
You've come beyond.
So real.
You can embrace it because
you're
people
right.
love it. I love it. And I just want to tell you my particularly favorite track on So Real is only 15 seconds. It is the telephone interlude where you get to hear probably 15, 16-year-old Mandy Moore. Yes. Hi guys. Hi guys, it's Mandy. Like, you know what to do after the beep. And then this mysterious character leaves a message who I kind of want, maybe as a lover of narrative, wanted to hear more about this chick, Bonnie. But it goes, beep. Hey, Mandy, it's Bonnie. I heard what happened. Call me back. Click. And then I think the Walk Me Home song starts or something like that.
Darren, I haven't thought about this in probably 15 years.
Oh, I've only thought about it for 15 years. I've been waiting to tell you how much
on Variety Actors on Actors.
And let me tell you why I like that track.
Okay.
I can go on. Because I'm not that much younger than you, but it was enough to where, Mandy Moore is this pop star that I'm seeing on MTV. And as a voracious music consumer, I always kept up to date with what was going on. So I was into the Mandy Moore thing.
Thanks.
And hearing her talk, hearing her voice as a human being was so sexy and interesting and like, whoa, she's a person with like an answering machine and a friend named Bonnie that really just wants her to call her back.
Yeah.
And there was something so human and accessible about that. I remember just like loving that was on the record because I was like, whoa, she's just like a kid. I'm a kid. Cool. So yeah, I don't know where the compliment is in that statement, but it was just I just remembered very distinctly.
About that record and that track in particular, I'm just thanks for this like mini trip down nostalgia
lane.
lane.
It. I remember listening to it on a mini disc.
Oh, absolutely.
In the backseat of like a road trip, and then listening to it and going and like rewinding, being like, it's only 15 seconds. Like, what happens? What happens here?
What happened?
I don't know.
What was she referring to?
I don't know.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. It's
great mystery.
A Zen question. So anyway, I loved that, and so anything you might giggle about or shy away from, I think it's fucking rad.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I guess it is like we both have been doing this for a minute now. It's like you sort of come to a point in your career where you have to like look back fondly and like pat that version of yourself on the back and say like, you know what? You were doing the best you could.
And
and to celebrate it.
And there's so many things that don't belong to you. I think the thing that I've really embraced is if you create anything, whether it's a song or a character or a show or a painting or like anything in life.
Yeah.
That's when it belongs to you. But once it's out there for the world, it belongs to that person.
Sure.
There's a lot of great stories that John Lennon used to talk about where like guys would come up to him and be like, John Lennon, when you said blah, 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 did you mean blah, 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 because me and my, and it would relate to their life. And he's like, man, honestly, I don't want to like ruin it for you, but I wrote that when I was on the John, like, in high school. And it sort of dismantles their perception, but that person's experience is ultimately, it lives in a different universe than what it meant for John. So like any stuff that for me that I'm not going to shrug off, but is a separate, older version of myself. I guess similarly, it's not the same as being a pop superstar, but being a part of something like Glee, it has the same thing where I go, you know what, man, like if this meant something to you, If it meant something positive to you,
even better. Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's great. That's so cool. That has almost nothing to do with me.
Sure.
It's everything to do with you and your aptitude for believing in something bigger than myself or said person. So
yeah.
I think that was very much in play with some of your early work as a teenager.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I will take the compliment to heart. I appreciate it. I mean, speaking of like us sort of going back and forth and looking to our past, and then obviously we're here to speak about work that we're really proud of that we're doing presently. How did you get involved with the assassination of Gianni Versace? It is a mouthful, sorry.
I get 3 syllables. This is us.
It's a little easier.
Yeah.
I can work harder than any of those men.
This isn't a sweatshop, sweetheart. Nobody gives a shit how hard you work. This is about being what people want.
But I can do this.
No can do. I can't sell a clever Filipino, even one with a big
How did you get involved? Like, when did you first hear about it? Did you know immediately, like, you wanted to audition for Andrew? And
So the short version is I'd worked with Ryan Murphy on Glee for a bit. And although never directly, in the sense that, as you know, working with Dan, like the sort of like director-actor relationship, he was more my boss.
Yeah.
I joined the 2nd season, so I didn't have that sort of, we're building this thing together relationship that I was always sort of envious of. I always thought that was, like, I always felt separate from the other kids for that reason. Not in a bad way, just sort of like, you know, I knew my order in the sort of pecking order.
Sure.
And so I think he was shooting a pilot in New Orleans. I was visiting my girlfriend, and they were shooting Scream Queens in New Orleans, and I remember visiting set, and the Great Wizard of Oz, Ryan Murphy had I had my 15 minutes with Ryan, you know, which is a rare piece of time to get.
But this was
this was like 2015.
Planned?
No, I was just there hanging out.
Got it.
And you know, his assistant was like, "Hey, do you want to get lunch with us?" I'm like, "Yes, this is amazing. I get to have my moment with Ryan to talk about anything."
Got it.
And Glee was coming to a close, and I don't want to be too like skeezy about it, but I was like, "Hey man, heard you're doing American Horror Story with Lady Gaga. Let me know if you need like a Wiley bellhop on that show, because
pitching yourself
just relentlessly, just without any shame." And he was like, "No, but I'm doing this crime story." This is before the OJ series had started.
Oh wow.
I said this was the short version. This is just the version.
No, I want to know everything.
Okay, so we're sitting there.
Because I'm obsessed.
Well, this will hopefully satiate your appetite for it. So so I'm sitting there and I'm saying this goofy thing about American Horror Story. He's like, "No, I'm doing this crime story thing, which was in pre-production. It was The People vs. OJ, which at the time was sort of in pre-production, and it wasn't the big hit that it ended up being."
Sure.
And he's like, "That's a big case that a lot of people know about, but I want to make it an anthology, and I really want to explore this story about Andrew Cunanan and Gianni Versace. How much do you know about Andrew Cunanan?" And I was like, I have no idea who that is. And then he, you know, look it up, and like, "Oh, he's yeah, that's right." I vaguely, in the back recesses of my mind, because I was 10 when it happened. The only reason why I remembered it was because he was half Filipino, and being a half Filipino kid, I'm like, "Oh, well, that's an interesting thing in history." It's really, but it's a thing that I would remember because we have a similar ethnic background. And that was that. I remember looking, I was like, "Oh my God," I was around his age at the time. He showed me this, like 2015. I'm like, I get the sort of resemblance. This is really eerie. Oof. And he's like, "Yeah, the first season I really want it to be this courtroom ensemble drama, and then the second one, I want to have it be sort of a manhunt character piece." Yeah. And so, you know, as an actor, you're like, sure, the word character piece is great. Not for the ego of like being all about you.
No, the like juicy challenge of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And also just having the breadth of space to dive into something.
Yeah.
Which you aren't always granted the luxury of doing. I think your shows, you've had an amazing, you literally get to go through all of time with this character. We'll get into that in a little bit. But so that was really interesting to me, and obviously I was super excited about it, but I wanted to like cool my jets because I don't want to get, you know, think that it was going to happen. It didn't happen. So like a year or two goes by. I'm doing a play in New York, and he calls me out of the blue. I'm about to go on stage. I'm in full hair and makeup. I was doing Hedwig and the Angry Inch at the time, and so I'm like in full Hedwig glamour,
glory,
and glitz and glamour and glory. And I remember like my dresser's like, "Ryan Murphy's calling." I'm like, Ryan Murphy doesn't like call me very often, so I remember very distinctly like trying to not get my lipstick on the phone.
Yeah.
Like, "Hi, what's going on? I have to go on stage." I'm not going to do my Ryan Murphy impression because he'll watch this and he'll get mad at me. But he was like, "Do you still want to do the Andrew Cunanan thing?" I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that was like a year and a half. Yes, of course, I'm in, absolutely. Radio silence for like another 2 years, a year and a half, and I read in Variety or Vanity Fair that they're doing a Katrina season, so I'm like, I guess they're not doing it. So for a while, it was just this thing that existed, and I would read stuff about Andrew Cunanan, and it was so dark that I was just like, you know what, I don't want this in my brain. I don't want these images, I don't want these ideas in my head. I don't want to know about it if I don't have to. And I kind of put it to rest because I didn't want to be like waiting on this opportunity. So I was making my own opportunities, whether it was with music or with, in another life, I sort of have this theater company and writing music for that. And there was a pilot that I sold with my buddies, and it was very exciting. And this was an example of me like, okay, I need to make opportunities for myself because I can't just wait around for shit to happen.
Yeah.
In the elevator on the way down of us like high-fiving, like we did it, like we sold it in the room, how exciting. I read that he's doing Cunanan and Versace, and I immediately text Ryan with like an ellipses and a question mark, like,
are we on?
So, we're gonna do this? And his response was, why'd you sell your pilot? Because he has eyes everywhere, like knew what I was up to. And then within a week, I kind of sorted that aside and did the show. So it's sort of a long thing, but it was. So
this was like years in the making.
There was like a waiting process of like, wow, what an amazing opportunity to be a part of this story. Especially when I learned more and more about it. Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
What a crazy story. Like, this is a Shakespearean tragedy.
But also to be seen by somebody who knew you distinctly in one light, like such a prolific creator like Ryan Murphy, to know you from Glee, but to know what you're capable of, because I mean, Andrew Cunanan couldn't be further from what you were doing on Glee, so it's like...
Sure, I think he saw, which is less of seeing Andrew Cunanan necessarily in me, or at least the worst parts of him in somebody like me. I think, I'd like to think that he saw, an actor, or
that he knew you were capable of going there, absolutely.
Ability, exactly. For better or for worse, like I'm not saying, who knows if I pulled it off, but still he saw...
You pulled it off, sir. You gave me nightmares.
Well, if that's the...
Literally, I never remember my dreams.
If that's the requirement, then yes, I guess I did.
Holy cow.
Sorry about that, but also thank you.
You're welcome.
But I think, and I'll parlay this to Dan Fogelman and your relationship, but, and we talked a little bit about this at another thing that we did together, but working with visionary people and these are people that I'm generally attracted to in life, whether you're an actual creative person or not. There are strategic people who are smart and can put things together, but then there are imaginative people that can take what's not there and see past what's right here.
Yeah.
And that takes a very special type of person to give people like us opportunities that we would otherwise not have the access to.
Yeah.
So I am forever indebted to him for seeing past whatever was in front of him and being like, here's what I think can happen, which I think is kind of what happened for you, because you were also on, you're hitting the pavement, really trying to do the actress thing, and you said it was, which blows my mind, because I guess the grass is always greener. I always see other actors and be like, oh my God, they're killing it. Like, if you had told me at this time, if I'd met you in this time, and you're like, it's tough out there, I'd have been like, no way. You kidding me? For you? No way. But I guess it's...
Absolutely. Yeah. But as an actor, it's like, you're like, you never think the next job is right around the corner.
Right.
You're terrified of like, what's next? Is there a next? And I think, before This Is Us sort of came around, I was at this juncture of my life where personally there was like a lot of turmoil, and it sort of happened to coincide with like things really kind of slowing down on the professional side. And I just felt like the machine had sort of ground to a halt, for better or worse. And like, I couldn't figure out how to start it back up again. And it's like, no matter what direction I took, whether it was like a half-hour comedy pilot or like an hour drama, like everything just never seemed to like find its footing.
And you had a pilot thing at one point.
I was doing like, I had done...
I remember that.
Yeah. Never happened.
Yeah, I know things.
You do know things.
Go on, I don't want to stop
It was a great
you.
idea too. It never came to fruition, but I remember I had done like 3 pilots in a row, and then the 4th pilot season, I remember I had gone out for something that I didn't even love, but I was like, you know what? Work begets work. Like, I want to get out there. I want to do something. Like, even though this isn't something I believe in, it's a job. And I remember that I didn't even get that. Like, I walked in for like the callback and the feedback was like, nah, she's not the right girl. And I was so devastated that like even the thing that I wasn't passionate about, I didn't even want it, and they didn't want me.
Oh, gosh.
So I remember I had just switched agencies, and at sort of my meeting with my new agent, we sort of laid the ground rules, and it was like, you know what, we've been pounding the pavement for like traditional pilot season for the last couple of years to like no results. So why don't we just put that to the side, let's table that idea and try and find like strategic ways of looking for like cool supporting roles on like cable stuff or other like media platforms or whatever. And about 2 weeks after this meeting, I got this script for the untitled Dan Fogelman project, and I saw that it was at NBC, and I was like, what? Isn't this like diametrically opposite to what we just sort of decided on?
Were you a fan? Were you familiar with his work, his films and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of Dan's. I loved Crazy Stupid Love, and John and Glenn, who directed that, were also attached to direct the pilot. Oh, cool. But I had also worked with Dan on Tangled. He wrote Tangled.
That's right.
Yeah.
Of course.
So we knew each other sort of more peripherally. Like we didn't really like. We weren't in like the same room at times.
There's
like,
a lot of moving pieces.
Yeah.
Different
with animated films, it's like there were 20 people at like my recording sessions, and he was one of them. But we didn't have a ton of interaction, but like we were familiar with each other.
Humble name drop. I was just with Alan Menken the other, like literally for something days ago, and I was like, oh, I get to be with another one of your princesses.
No way. Oh God. Yeah. What a gem he is.
Dude, he's one of my guys. Like,
Same.
Anyway, sorry, so...
I digress.
So you didn't meet Dan, he was in different...
Well, we met each other, but we didn't know each other. I think a lot of people are like, oh, you worked together on this project, so obviously he just like offered the role to you, and it couldn't have been further from the truth. But I remember reading the script for This Is Us thinking...
He offered the role to you?
No, he didn't. Okay. I think people assumed that because we had a prior relationship or we knew each other from Tangled, but that wasn't the case. So I read the script and immediately called all my folks and was like, what do I have to do to be a part of this?
Oh, so you really chased it.
I chased it hard. And I think I was one of the...
goosebumps, because I know how it ended. Or it began, I should say.
Well, it was a really tough moment in my life professionally. And I remember I went in early and I felt okay about the audition, and the feedback was like, they really liked you, but you were one of the very first people that they read. So now they're gonna go to New York and like read a ton of other girls, and we'll get back to you. So I waited about 5 weeks, I think, and I had sort of forgotten about it. As you do, you move on. And I got the call that like, okay, they're gonna bring in a handful of actresses and a handful of actors to like do chemistry reads together. And one of the guys was Milo. And I remember hearing like, Milo's the guy to beat. Like, Milo is their guy.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, great. Like, which is also intimidating because they're so sure about the guy. Like, when you're called in to read with someone, it's like, oh, they kind of more or less have the job for all intents and purposes. So I went in and I read with him. And
met before?
We had never met before. And the scene, like the pilot
Can I ask what scene it was?
It was the opening scene of the pilot where I'm like literally 9 months pregnant with triplets, and I'm waddling in with like the cupcake.
Oh yeah.
I'm doing like the little dance or whatever.
Yeah.
And we didn't know each other, so it was like we had to jump right into being husband and wife, and like this like couple that really anchors this entire show. And at that point we didn't know sort of how the show would unfold. It's like, you just read the first episode, but I loved him immediately. I felt comfortable with him immediately. I felt really good in the room.
America's mensch.
America's like the greatest man. And that was it. Like, I felt good and found out that we both got it that night.
I'm not gonna calm down though, because what I want is for you to tell her to give me my onions back, okay? I have a recipe that calls for 4 ounces of yellow onion. And I've been planning this dish for a whole week, and I'm not gonna leave here without my yellow onion.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I just want to ask, so I was gonna say your character is the only one that kind of goes between all the time. I mean, you are a narrative and literal anchor of the show.
Yeah.
And did you know anything, or were you just like, I'm gonna play the wife? Like, did you have any sort of like fear of like maybe complacent female role? Was there any, like, did you know that you had this wonderful spectrum of?
I had no idea the breadth of the character. I didn't know how the story was going to be told ultimately. I remember while we were shooting the pilot, Dan, like, he's the greatest boss ever. I feel so lucky. He wears his heart on his sleeve. Have you met him?
I don't think I have.
He is the most wonderful
quickly,
guy.
And then I didn't realize it was Dan Fisher.
Of course, because he's the most unassuming too. He would never, he's like super shy, but
Brian's like, I'm Ryan Murphy.
Of course, he like owns it.
You should know that.
Dan is like the opposite. He's so unassuming and like the loveliest guy. But I remember him, and he gets really excited about things. And he was super excited while we were shooting the pilot about like starting to regale Milo and I with ideas of like where the show is going to go in all these different directions. And I was like, no, don't tell me, because what if this doesn't happen? And then I'm going to be so upset. So that was the first indication that I had. And I knew when I read the script and I ultimately, when I got the role, that like, he was like, don't worry. I know that it doesn't seem like it's a lot on the page for this first episode, but like, this is like, she is the mother and she's the matriarch of this family. And like, it's going to get good.
That's
I was
nice
like,
that he
okay.
told you that.
Totally. But I would have done it regardless. I was like, this is such exquisite writing. And when we did the first read through with the cast, I was like, everybody's so exceptional. Like, I would have been a part of it had I just been a tiny fraction of the show.
Well, considering that you are a leading, I mean, it is a leading ensemble. Everybody does really kind of get their spot.
Yeah, they get their moments.
Everyone has their moment, which is really great. I think that the writers have done such a marvelous job of that. Also, as a fan of these characters, you're just waiting and like, I want to hear more about this person, how this happened, and it all happens. I always appreciate when I feel respected as a fan of something, where they give it about what I would
ultimately want
to see or hear or get explained or sort of like have something come to fruition. So as a leading character on this show, is this the first time you've been
the lead?
Like a leading on a series? Obviously in films you've done
this
that.
This is the first time I've ever really done a series. So
how's that going for you?
It's going all right.
Yeah, it's a crazy machine.
It's a machine.
Yeah.
But I love it. And as you well know, it's like when people embrace the work that you're doing and embrace like these characters, and you recognize and are humbled by the idea that like you're in people's homes. Like it's so different from the experience of being in a film where like people, you know, ultimately go and see you. They go somewhere else to watch you on the big screen.
Well, and they also drop it off when they leave, where you have a weekly presence.
You have a weekly presence like in someone's home, and you're in their hearts and their minds, and like people will stop us on the street and like they want to be vulnerable. They want to like get into the nitty gritty of like how they relate to these characters and stories. It does feel like a huge debt of responsibility that I'd never really thought about until I was in this position, but it's beautiful. I love that I get the chance to like, you know, as you were saying, like I'm the one lucky cast member that gets to sort of like traverse all of this territory of like playing this woman from 22 to like 68.
You look good at 68.
She does, right?
Yeah, she really does. You're in for a treat.
I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna age that well, but
Not with that attitude, Mandy Moore.
I'm trying to borrow all her secrets.
Mrs. Pearson, your husband has died.
Mom, I'm sorry. You know, we were just here for a burn.
Yes.
On his arm.
No.
You really don't remember talking to me just
No,
a
I
minute
remember,
ago?
Mrs. Pearson. Is there someone we can call for you?
I wanted to ask, before you felt that responsibility, which to me sounds like it was garnered from the public response when that extra and necessary element of what we do was finally added before the show was on or anything. Did you feel this responsibility as sort of the quarterback, as a leading character or a lead? I don't want to get into the bureaucracy of call sheets. I know that's a thing to some people, but still,
Not to me, but yeah.
But you know, for some people, there's a real sort of again the pecking order.
There's no pecking order for us.
Yeah.
There's
I guess for you guys, yeah.
there's
This
like
is us. It's not this is me. I guess.
It is. We definitely feel like mom and dad. Like Milo's number one on the call sheet, and it very much feels like he's dad. Like he knows. He's like eagle eye knows everything that's going on set. And to that sense, to that degree, I feel like mom. But I guess I did feel that responsibility playing. I've never played a wife before. I'm not a mother. So to suddenly like have this insta family, like having 3 children in all these different iterations, from babies to toddlers to teenagers and 10-year-olds and adults, like I sort of have to have a relationship, an individual relationship with all of these different kids and the adults. And I felt daunted by that. I think most by the prospect of playing a 66-year-old woman, I have no point of reference. I mean, I have no point of reference in playing a mother in general, but like an older grandmother who is a widow, who also lost a child early on in her life. And I mean, there's so many extenuating factors, and now is remarried to
like
my
playing different
husband's best friend. It is, it's very much
people.
like, it's like 4 different characters
Right.
in one, which is like such a treat and a delight,
Right.
but
That's also real life. You know, if
It
you
is
meet
real life.
somebody at one, if I met you as a 10-year-old, it's gonna be way different. I mean,
than who you are at 34, absolutely,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So, I mean, I don't have kids. I'm not a mother. I will never bear a child in my body.
Yeah.
But even watching the show, I was just watching going, how does anybody with a family get through this? I'm like a mess. I can like,
Yeah.
it's such a firing squad of emotions
Yeah.
and these.
And nostalgia. It's like it
Oh,
hits all the buttons
It hits
of like,
all the buttons, man.
Yeah.
And I'm, so, well, I have news for you. You've done just great. As you are very much this matron mother figure that sort
Thank
of
you.
reaches out from my television set and like,
I'll take that
Takes
as the
me in.
ultimate compliment.
I want to be in that family. What
You're
a
welcome.
good family.
You're a extended member of the Pearson family.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know everybody on the show, so you might as well be.
Yeah, and I also know what happens, so I know like when to leave the house or like to turn the cooker off. Like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
save you.
Don't leave the slow cooker on.
Don't do it. I know.
For me, being told no is like being told I don't exist. It's like I've disappeared or something.
Hey, you're a catch.
Not like them.
It's a look, that's all.
It's a look people want.
What I want to know from you, though, is like this tremendous role, which you are so brilliant in, and terrifying, and manipulative, and conniving, and how did you find playing the lead character where like this is your show? This is like you're not leaning on anyone. Like it is all about you. It's all about your character. Like and the way that they tell this story sort of out of order. Like how did you find that? How is it shot? Like how did you get
questions
in
I'm
the,
like making
Sorry. Like how did you get in the mind frame of taking on a leading character and all of this responsibility that you had? And then did you know how it was gonna sort of unfold? Did you shoot it out of order? Because how do you prepare for something like that?
Gosh, well, firstly, I mean, how do I want to answer this? I mean, it was cool that it wasn't, I mean, it seems like it's all about Andrew because when it is about Andrew, it's just his narrative.
Sure.
And I liked that it was juxtaposed against another brilliant mind with a different set of buttons. You know,
Yeah.
I like that juxtaposition against the two of them. So if it was just a me thing, it would have been a little more scary. I like that Edgar Ramirez and I became very close throughout this whole process because it was this sort of parallel character study that we were sort of, you know, the great destroyer and the great creator, we were juxtaposing them against each other, and how even though a lot of most of our stuff was shot without each other, there was so much that crossed over thematically, I guess, that was like a nice thing. So
Yeah.
I did feel like I had someone to lean on, I guess, personally in the storytelling.
In the process,
all of it, yeah. Even though, again, we weren't shooting actual things together except
so
for little bits.
interesting.
Yeah, but I really liked the fact that it was, the character piece is almost a two-hander. But even, well, that's on a grand scale because each episode is sort of like almost its own little play.
It is. It's like its own little mini movie.
Yeah, exactly. So it was almost like shooting a new, or like a real act every time. On the similar to you, even though I had done a series for many years on a very sort of the Glee itself was an anomaly because it wasn't just like it did stuff that other shows never had done. So having all that stuff, so imagine all the sort of boot campy things, you know, between, you know, recording and going to dance rehearsal and all that stuff. So doing that, you know, for 8 different numbers a week for 22 episodes every season for like 6 some odd years. Like that's just like its own little animal.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it because I'm like masochistic like that way. I kind of enjoy people being like, this is going to be hard. I'm like, bring it. So I really
You strike me as the type. Sure.
I really did enjoy it, truthfully. But again, I wasn't. I didn't have any responsibility to carry anything. Again, I came on later, so I always had this not inferiority complex, but sort of.
You felt maybe a bit removed.
I was like, this is their thing. Like Glee was a huge hit when I was like in college, and I remember, you know, like talking about it with people with full objectivity. So when I joined the show, I had a total bird's eye view of like,
Got it.
well, I'm on Glee. Like that's crazy. Like it build it from the ground up.
Yeah.
So this was the first time I'd ever been a part of something where it was the first time Ryan Murphy had really directed me. Again, because when I met him before, he was just my boss, right? So this is the first time we were like making the dough and creating the thing and getting in the trenches and asking the questions and finding or searching for the answers.
Sure.
So that was really cool because it was the first time I was in a position to set, I guess, a tone on set. Again, this is even before the show was done or out. Like it was a dark show, and I'm a pretty goofy person, so it was nice to have. There's shenanigans I pulled on that shoot that I would have never done on Glee because it would have been.
It wasn't the right environment.
It just wasn't the right environment.
Yeah.
I honestly, I knew my place. I just was like, I'm not gonna, do certain things because it's not appropriate.
Sure.
And I respected it and acknowledged my place. Whereas this, I was like, all right, guys, fine. If I'm gonna shoot this off, and there's gonna be a few more fart jokes than there usually are, which was almost a necessary defense mechanism from just the
weightiness of the
dark
material,
tedium of every day and getting the crew and everybody in a different spirit after you're shooting something so dark. But how did I get in the mindset? I mean, when people say stuff like, oh my God, it's so terrifying, it's so creepy, as you know on set, these moments that you're playing, whatever extreme they are, whether they be the extreme of anger or sadness or love or woe or any sort of dial at 11 of any given emotion, they are quieter, simpler moments on set. But when you add the cocktail of extra close-up and the music and the sort of pacing, it sort of changes everything. And the things that have been truly terrifying in the show, I go, wow, that's like way more scary than I remember. I think the things that really scared me or that were very severe were those much quieter moments in between. Those were the ones that were like, oh.
That made you real uncomfortable.
Yeah, those were things that got me. Like jolts and scares, which are great on the show.
Yeah.
Were things that that just I'm not in control of that curation, and they did a marvelous job to really make an intense, exciting, thrilling show. But those are the moments that I really latched onto with Andrew were the much quieter, whether they were scary or really happy. The things for me for Andrew was latching on to the best parts of him because there were really a lot of lovely, promising things about him, which to me is the tragedy that you have this wonderful guy that had so many gifts.
And went down such a dark path,
place.
deviated.
So that's the tragedy.
Major way.
It's not the actual tragedy that we're looking at. It's the fall from grace that to me is the real, that just broke my heart.
So you can hold your own at a dinner table conversation?
I am the dinner table conversation.
Do you have experience with older men?
In high school, I took a man in his 30s to my senior prom. He bought me nice things. A lot of men have bought me nice things. I'm very good with older men.
So we were talking about how people come up to you on the street and connect with your character and have a real connection to you. That put under a massive magnifying glass would be social media and the way that both of our shows and our public personas exist in the world outside of our control. How do you find being on it? Well, first of all, congrats on being a hit show. We both got hit shows, which are out of our control. That's super. We won the lottery.
We did win the lottery.
So, which to me, I go, oh man, it's all downhill after this. Like,
I know. You're like, let me hold
please.
on to this ride for as long as possible.
As am I. So, how do you deal with,
Social media?
The people's saying good or bad things? I mean, does it affect?
I have to say, and I hope that you have this experience, I feel overwhelmed with the amount of positivity that's out there, and I try to sort of focus on that. And I like to believe that like attracts like, so if you project positivity and sort of celebrating, I love sharing bits and pieces of my life with people. I'm more than willing to sort of give people a glimpse into who I am and sharing stuff like behind the scenes on set and all of that.
Take a page out of your book. I'm so bad about that stuff. It's such a thing.
But anyway. I understand that as well.
I'm not proud of it.
It feels like a natural extension of who I am, and I think I'm able to like delineate between what I consider to be like private and like too personal or whatever, and then what I'm willing to like share with people. It's odd because so much has changed in terms of the social media landscape, especially since I started. I don't know if you feel the same way, but I've been doing this since I was 15 before social media existed, and I can't imagine like being an up and comer now in this day and age where it is so impossible to exist without it. Like, I understand people that want to retain like mystery and privacy, but I also believe like I'm comfortable with it to a certain extent, and I love like the ability to instantly connect with people. Like, we all live tweet the shows. We
and also you're still going. You're not done. Like if someone says their thoughts about the show, it's like I can't
done.
change anything.
It's happened.
Like, we really think your
Sure.
character should do this. You're like, well, that could, I don't know. We have another season. We have like a few seasons. I hope many seasons. So it's interesting that they can still
I feel like we're along on the ride together.
Right.
So in that sense, like, I'm happy to like hold hands with people and say like, cool, we're in this together. But I also understand like people's hesitation. How do you feel? I mean, you're also like, you're extremely handsome and you're super talented, and I know that attracts very specific like legion of like probably over-eager and overexcited female fans. So like that maybe is a lot to contend with.
It's not
I don't
limited to the females, all right?
Well,
I think,
but I
still
think
got
the
it with
lady,
some of the lads out
okay,
there.
of course,
Trying
but
my
I
best.
think ladies can be a little more like persistent and over-eager and maybe overexcited on social media, and I don't know if that like factors in for you.
Well,
It's a lot.
yeah. I mean, like you focus on the positive, and again, you know, if they're talking about it, that's a victory. I think the victory is in the discussion, and we live in a very lucky, bizarro time. The whole, we're still negotiating, navigating what our relationship is with pop culture, and it being available to just everybody at the click of a button. I think it's still a bit the Wild West, because it's only been around for
a few
years. So I think everyone's still figuring out how to embrace it where necessary, and utilize it where we're useful, and to really, you know, shun it when it's also necessary. So I've been. I don't know. I feel very lucky. I mean, Glee was born in the lightning in the bottle nexus of social media being born, and had a huge factor in it doing so well. So I owe a lot of gratitude to all the good bits of it. So in short, I would just say, you know, like I think it's been good to our shows, but our shows have been good. So like you said, light begets light. So. Yeah, again, holding on to it as long as I can, because I'm not going to be able to say that about everything I'm going to be doing.
That's true. I feel the same way.
I hope that's not true for you. I hope you have many years of crushing it ahead.
Same.